Today's footprint is tomorrow's legacy. Today's footprint is tomorrow's legacy. If we could click to the next slide, please. Did you miss me? For every pastor brings certain strengths and weaknesses to the pulpit, but one of the things I've always enjoyed, and I haven't done it all that much recently, is a little call and response. And so if I say today's footprint, I'd like you all to say tomorrow's legacy. Can we give that a try? Today's footprint is
tomorrow's legacy.
Very nice. Let's give that one more try. Today's footprint is tomorrow's legacy. That's right. All right. Now, in my time here as your pastor, you've all been very kind to me. You've been so supportive of my ministry, and I really appreciate that. But one compliment that always kind of tickles me is when people are surprised that I could be good at a funeral. How does a 27-year-old kid understand the gravity of the situation? How can he possibly honor the life of an older person? Today's footprint is tomorrow's legacy. I work very hard on my sermons to go above and beyond, and there's a reason for that. Some of you think very highly of me, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you my worst moment in ministry ever. When I was 22 years old, I got a phone call from my dad. Now, I was not a pastor. This is before I got married. I was in seminary. It was during the summer, and I got a phone call from my dad. He's also a pastor. And he was out of town at some conference, and all the other pastors were busy. And so he wondered if I would be willing to take on a funeral for that weekend. Now, I'll tell you this, I did not know what I was doing. I was not trained for this. I hadn't gotten to that class yet. I didn't know how to do a funeral, but I was arrogant. I was very confident. I was fresh out of my first year of seminary, so I could do anything. And so I said, absolutely, I will do this funeral. I know how to do everything. And then I found out that the boy who had died was 20 years old. It was a suicide. And he had just gotten out of prison for the last 2 years. When he was 18, he ended up in prison. And his family didn't really know him, so they didn't have much to say. Needless to say, that's not your average sermon, your average funeral. I was about to get baptized in fire, but I was still arrogant, so I went ahead and did this. And so I went and I met with the family. I sat there for 45 very awkward minutes, and I don't know what I'm going to say to this family. What can I possibly do to honor this life? And so I got home, and I looked at my notes, and I put together some kind of a message. I thought I came up with kind of a clever thing to say. And I'm willing to admit this to you now, but I got up there, I had no idea what I was doing. I got up there in front of everybody, and I was terrified. I was so nervous about what I was about to do. Do you guys know what speed reading is? Right? I was so nervous. I got up in front of that funeral the next day, and I just gripped the sides of that podium, and I just read through my paper as fast as humanly possible. Just said everything as fast as I could. That funeral was over in 6 minutes. I wish I was making that up. Oh, man. Yeah. I was so embarrassed. I ran. Right? I said, thank you, so sorry for your loss, and then I just booked it out the door as fast as I could. That funeral started at noon. I was done by 12:13. I was in the car on my way out. Now, I can laugh about that now, but I was not laughing that day. I was humiliated. I couldn't believe. I felt like I had let that family down. I'd let my church down. I'd let my dad down. I'd let myself down. I embarrassed myself. Today's footprint is tomorrow's legacy. I vowed that day that I would never walk into a service unprepared ever again. And I haven't. People wonder why I plan my sermons a year out in advance. Why I have every single word written down just in case I get nervous. What happened yesterday prepared me for today. What we do today gets us ready for what's coming tomorrow. Say it with me. Today's footprint,
tomorrow's legacy.
That's right. Now those 4 words are going to come up a lot in the next year. What I want us to realize is that every single thing we do today has effects into tomorrow. It determines what tomorrow is going to be like. My very first sermon in this church 2 years ago, I got up here and I said, we are all different, and that's a very good thing. And I didn't mean for that to become a motto. I didn't mean for that to become a theme, but it caught on. It captured us a little bit. And so for the rest of that year, we had this theme of hospitality, of challenging and embracing one another in our differences. We realized we don't have time to bicker and fight. We've got better things to do out there in the world, sharing God's love with the entire world. very good thing. And then for last year, we had this theme. We said, we've come a long ways, but we're not done yet. Do you remember me saying that a whole bunch this past year? We've come a long ways, but we're not done yet. And we tried to shift into a growth-oriented mindset to realize we're not stuck in a rut. We can move forward. No matter where you are in life, there is always a deeper level. There is always more to be done, more to learn, more to do. And now, technically today is the first Sunday of my third year here at Wesley. And now I finally believe that we are ready. I don't know how many of you understand how the Methodist appointment system works, but every year in January, the district superintendent and all the other district superintendents and the bishop and all those big wigs up at the conference level, they meet together and they have a cabinet. And every year they decide what pastors get to move, what pastors are going to be shuffled around. You know, they got some retiring pastors and some pastors who need to move because they're not doing a very good job, and they move them around, right? And so every year I might get that phone call. But they decided that I need to be here for at least one more year, and then next year hopefully I won't get that phone call next year. But it's every year, we don't know, and I'm excited to be here for at least one more year. I'm very excited about that because I believe we're finally ready. I want us to start looking forward to the future. I want us to start planning for the legacy that we are going to leave with what we do today. One more time, today's footprint is tomorrow's legacy. That's right, it's tomorrow's legacy. So we're going to move into our scripture lesson for today. And we're going to kind of walk through our passage in Proverbs a little bit. But what we have to realize is the type of book that Proverbs is. You see, Proverbs is what you call wisdom literature. And it's kind of tricky to preach from, right? Because every verse in Proverbs is kind of its own little clever phrase. There's no narrative, there's no stories, there's no flow. It's just every line is its own clever little quip. It's its own clever little phrase. Phrases of wisdom. And so we get started in verse 1. And it says, choose a good reputation over great riches. Being held in high esteem is better than silver or gold. The rich and the poor have this in common. The Lord made them both. And so the first thing that we learn is that a good reputation is more important than your bank account. That's pretty straightforward. God makes us all, poor people and rich people, and this church has them both. We've got some rich people and we've got some poor people in this church, but none of that matters. What matters is your reputation, far more than what's in your bank account. Now I think this works as individuals, but also as a church. Right? There are churches out there, they have so much money, it's crazy. When you find out about their endowments and their investments and the land that they own, there are churches that have so much money, but none of that matters. Because the question is, what's their reputation? What are they known for in the community? What have they done? How do people talk about them? How do people talk about us? How is Wesley Church known out there in the world? What's our reputation in the community? What are we known for? And then you bring it down to a personal level. What is your reputation in the world? What are you known for? Are you known as a man of God? Are you known as a woman of God? Are you known for being honest and forgiving and loving and kind? Or are you known for your job? Are you known for your bank account, for your toys, for your great vacation home? Are you known for your stuff, your victories in this life? As Christians, we have to throw away the culture's obsession with money. That's kind of the first step. We're not following the culture. No, we're going to follow God. And so we scoot down just a couple of verses, and we get to verse 6 and 7. And it says, direct your children onto the right path, and when they are older, they will not leave it. Just as the rich rule the poor, so the borrower is servant to the lender. Now, that first part, direct your children on the right path, and when they're older, they will not leave it. That's pretty straightforward. That's kind of a famous line, right? Raise your kids the right way, and they'll be better off tomorrow. But it's that next line I kind of want to focus on. That next line in verse 7, it says, just as the rich rule the poor, so the borrower is servant to the lender. Now, in the modern world, we don't really talk about, masters and servants. We don't talk about lords and peasants anymore. We don't really have the peasant system anymore. Well, what this verse is pointing out is that actually kind of in our world we do. Right? I mean, how did the peasant system work? How did the old school feudal system work? You had peasants, right? And they didn't own the land, not really. And so they would work the land, and then they would give a portion of the land back to their overlord, to their governor, or the king, or whoever it was. And they would work the land and give a portion every month or a portion every year. I mean, do you realize that this is a very old school definition of a mortgage? And that's what that is, right? I mean, that's what a loan is. You don't really own it, not completely, and you work it, you give a portion every month. I mean, yes, in the modern world, we don't say masters and slaves, right? We don't say peasants and lords anymore. But has anything in our society really changed? No, rich people still own the poor. They still control the poor. Borrowers are still servants to the lenders. In the modern world, we don't use words like that. The words have changed. We say thanks instead of lords, right? But has anything else really changed? Think about higher education. We are sending our kids to school. I mean, what is the average now? $27,000, $30,000 a year? These kids, they can't afford that. Maybe mom and dad can pay for it, but they're going to school and they have to go full time because that's what they're pressured to do, and they're graduating with just massive amounts of debt. Like, this is how the higher education system is working. They're not just spitting out smart kids with degrees and the potential for a job. They're spitting out servants to the latest and greatest loan enterprise, which more often than not is the federal government nowadays. Do you see this problem? We just did this like a decade ago with the whole the housing market issue, right? The system collapsed on itself. It couldn't sustain itself. And now we're headed for the same thing with our kids. But the system is not going to survive. No, I've got nothing against college. Nothing. I went to college, but I wish we were encouraging our children to pay as they go, to understand that you have to work to earn to have. That's the process of how things should work. Verse 8 kind of finishes the thought. It says in verse 8, it says, those who plant injustice will harvest disaster. Those who plant injustice will harvest disaster, and their reign of terror will come to an end. Do you understand? You plant injustice like a seed in the ground. You plant it, and then eventually you harvest disaster. It will grow. This is a lesson on actions and consequences. You plant injustice so that disaster will grow. One more time, today's footprint is tomorrow's legacy. You see how this is starting to work. Now, I want to move over to Psalm 78. It's not one of our scripture lessons for today. It says exactly what I'm trying to say. It says, we will not hide these truths from our children. We will tell the next generation about the glorious deeds of the Lord and His power and His mighty wonders. You see, in church, we talk a lot about the things that God has done for us over history, but in our personal lives as well. We talk about all the things that God has done in the world. And we're going to tell our children about that. One of the first things we learn from all this talk of reputation and generations and children and money is that God guides us. God guides us. God has shown us the way to live. The path has been clearly marked. If we could just open our eyes to see it, God has laid out the path in front of us, the right way to live. When Jesus Christ left this world, when Jesus Christ was getting ready to go back up into heaven, He turned to His disciples, His followers, and He said, I'm leaving, but I'm going to send you my Spirit. I'm going to send my Spirit so you know what you're doing. We call that the Holy Spirit, and it lives in each and every one of us. It's that still small voice in the wilderness, calling us home, calling us back into the light. That's what the Holy Spirit does. And so verse 1 of the psalm, it says, oh, my people, listen to my instructions. Open your ears so that you can hear what I'm saying. For I'm going to speak to you in a parable. I will teach you hidden lessons from your past. Stories that we have heard and known. Stories that our ancestors have handed down to us. Do you see how this works? God guides us with stories from our past. With parables from our past. If you pay attention to how you got here today, you can kind of see the next step. You can see what's coming next. If you pay attention to our history, far back, but also your personal history, if you pay attention to yesterday, you can understand what's going to happen tomorrow. You can find the next step. God guides us. And the next step is to share that guidance with the next generation, with our children. Verse 4 says, we will not hide these truths from our children. We're not going to hide this from our kids. We're going to tell them about it. Look, if you get anything from being a Christian, if you have learned anything, if you have grown at all while getting closer to God, if you have gained anything from coming here and reading your Bible and studying your Bible and listening to the sermons and going to Bible studies and worshiping together, if there's any value in what we are doing here today, the next step is to pass that on to the next generation. Otherwise, we're being selfish with our faith. If we're not sharing it with those who don't know, then we are being selfish with our faith. One more time, today's footprint is tomorrow's legacy. And so I have a question for you this morning. Who is your church for? Who is your church for? Every building on the planet has someone that is designed designed for, someone that they are trying to reach. For example, if I'm trying to get the shear pin fixed on my snowblower or the blade on my mower, which just broke yesterday, if I'm trying to fix my lawnmower, am I going to go to Ace Hardware or McDonald's? Obviously, I'm going to go to Ace Hardware, right? And when they have what I need, I'll go to Lowe's. If I want a delicious ice cream cone, am I going to go to Cone Corner or Cinema 5? Obviously, I'm going to strap Liam into that little baby backpack, and we're going to head over to Cone Corner. There's nothing wrong with Cinema 5, but that's not who they're trying to reach. They don't serve me my delicious frozen treat. Right? Cinema 5 doesn't do that. That's not who they're trying to aim at. That's not who they're trying to reach. They're trying to reach moviegoers, because that's what that place is about. So let me ask you, who is your church for? Who is this church trying to reach? Are we being selfish with our legacy? Earlier I asked the question, what are we known for? What is our reputation out there in our community? What do people in Ishpeming, in Negaunee, all of Marquette County, what do people say about Wesley Church? Would you like to know? On Facebook, the website Facebook, you can go onto our page and you can leave a review. We have 15 reviews of this church, 4.7 out of 5 stars. It's not terrible, 94%, that's pretty good. But one reviewer said, what did he say? He says, I have a family with teens, but Wesley is oriented more around senior citizens. On yellowpages.com, we have only one review, 4 out of 5 stars. Not as good, 80% B-. And he says, the pastor is now J.J. Mantrek, and the church offers childcare during the services, but not really much else for youth and young people, the young adult ministry. By all appearances, the church's mission is to minister to the aged and the dying, and they do a truly wonderful job. Now, I want to be very careful with what I say now, because there's nothing wrong with ministering to the older generation. There's nothing wrong with providing worship and love and care to our current membership. That's awesome. I'm glad you guys are here. We do that well, and obviously we do that well. But if that is all we are known for today, that's all we're going to have tomorrow. And then eventually we're going to be like a dozen other churches in the area that are right on the verge of closing their doors because they haven't reached the next generation. And so I ask again, who is your church for? Do visitors have to crawl past all of your favorite things to get to Jesus? Or is our worship experience, have we designed a worship experience that's all our favorite things? Or have we designed a worship experience that is meant to reach those who don't know Jesus yet? Who is your church for? What is your legacy going to be? So we go back to our verse in Proverbs chapter 22, verse 3. It says in verse 3, it says, a prudent person foresees danger and takes precaution. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. Smart people look ahead. That's what that says. Smart people look ahead. And do you know what I see for the future of this church? Right now, we are strong today. I'm very proud to get up here and say that we are a healthy church right now. Attendance is up, membership is up, debt is down. Debt is down a lot. You guys have been doing a lot of work on that. We've been doing awesome. Well, what will tomorrow bring? What will we have left tomorrow? What is our legacy going to be from what we're doing right now? Are we just going to have memories of how great it was yesterday? Is that all we're going to leave behind, are memories of good times? Or are they going to be grateful in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years? Are they going to be grateful for what we did today? Because we started to look forward to our future. We started to plan for the future. Are they going to be grateful for that? Whether we took action today. Today's footprint is tomorrow's legacy. We are here to realize that God guides us. But the next step, we are ready for this next step, is to pass that guidance on to the next generation. Do I need that? To everyone else who is still out there. Now, you're not going to like this next part. You're not going to like this next part because the first part of our application is to realize that legacy is not about you. Our legacy is not about you. Legacy is about everyone else. It's about what you leave behind for everyone else. And so when you start to plan for tomorrow, sometimes you have to get a little uncomfortable today. Sometimes when you plan for tomorrow, you have to get a little uncomfortable today. I'll give you 2 examples. First, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a rock star. That was what all my friends did, and we all played guitar, and we played electric guitar on really crappy instruments, and we would play horrible songs, and that was what we loved to do. And there were kind of a lot of kids in my church. I was 14, 15 years old, and we got together and we did a little worship band. And I grew up in a church called Big Beaver United Methodist Church. Wonderful people, terrible name for a church. Big Beaver United Methodist Church. It was the name of a road in Detroit. Never mind. We would play in front of this church. We got together. Now this church, it was a little bit larger than this one. But their structure was very similar. They had the early service, it was a little bit smaller, it was contemporary, and then they had the traditional service at 11 o'clock. Now their traditional service was awesome. It was very similar to what they had the whole choir and the organ and all that good stuff, and they just did traditional worship very, very well. But me and my friends, the 14 and 15-year-olds of our church, we liked the electric guitar rock sound, with a lot of gain and distortion and the drums and loud and clashing cymbals and all that kind of stuff. That's what we loved. And so we would play worship music. We would try to worship our God, but with our style, with what we felt good with. And we started to really enjoy ourselves. We were having a lot of fun. We did that thing where you overload the system, turn everything up to 11. A lot of feedback is horrible. And trust me when I tell you, there were days when it sounded awful. It's a bunch of teenagers still learning how to play their instruments, trying to look so cool. It was painful stuff to listen to some days. I've got videos of this stuff, and I go back and I watch it, and I just, oh no, people saw me do that, it's awful. My bass player, he used to refuse to wear shoes up front. He would say the excuse, he'd say, well, this is a holy place, so I'm not supposed to wear shoes. He wouldn't wear shoes up front. That was his thing, he felt comfortable like that. We were not what that church wanted. But they loved us. They supported us. They welcomed us. They even let us lead worship. They let us take over entire Sundays, both services we would get to play. They would actually let us lead both services on a Sunday, and so they would invite us to do this. Now, don't get me wrong, they hated that music. Right? We weren't good. They didn't enjoy that worship experience, but they tolerated us because they supported us and they loved us. I remember one Sunday we were leading worship and we were doing both services, and we had finished these are 14, 15-year-olds leading worship up front. The whole worship band was 15 years old. The preacher was me, and I was 15, so it was not good. But they let us do that. I remember one time we did the first service and we were getting ready for the second service, and so we were warming up in between the services. And we had one of the regulars, a little old lady, she was stopped in the back. She didn't even come into the sanctuary. She just kind of leaned on that door frame. She leaned on that door frame and she listened to us play half a song. She listened to us play half a song and she said, nope. She made a huge face. She took her fingers, stuck them in her ears, turned around, and walked away. What does that do to a 15-year-old kid who's trying his best? He's terrible at it, but who cares? He's trying his best to worship his God in his style. What does that do to that kid? Thankfully, she was the exception. For the most part, that church loved us, and they embraced us, and they supported us. They planted seeds, and you know what happened? We got better all through high school. And by the time we got to college, we had a really solid little worship team going. We had kids who would come back every year. They invited us to come back every Thanksgiving. We called it College Day. All the kids are back for Thanksgiving or whatever with their families. So they would run the service. We would run the service on Thanksgiving Sunday. We called it College Day. They planted the seeds. They invested in their young people, and they got to reap those benefits. I need you to understand that I wouldn't be a pastor. I wouldn't be here today if that church hadn't gritted their teeth and listened to me play horrible music. They supported us. They loved us, even because it was about us, not about themselves. Sometimes planning for tomorrow means you have to get uncomfortable today. Here's another example. I came up with this theme, this whole today's footprint is tomorrow's legacy. I came up with this theme about a year ago, a couple of months ago. Came up with it months ago, but it all got very real for me about 6.5 weeks ago. It all kind of came crashing down, all this stuff about generations and children and reputation and what are we leaving for the next generation. It all kind of came crashing down on my shoulders the first time I held my son. I'm going to be very transparent with you. I'm being totally selfish with the direction for this church. I want us to start thinking about tomorrow because I want the church to be here. Not just this church, but the Methodist church. I want us to still be here for my son Liam the way that my church was there for me, to guide me through those years. I want the church to still be here for him. Trust me, Liam is going to do stuff that I don't like. Right? He's going to love music that I hate, that drives me crazy. Right? And I'm going to show him real music, and he's going to say, no, Dad, that's lame. That's old people music. I don't want to listen to that. Whatever horrible thing the next generation comes up with and calls music, I want that in my church. Do you understand? I want whatever he listens to, I want that to be in my church, because it's not just about me and what I like. I want him to be connecting to his God. So who is your church for? Is it all about you and what your favorite things are? Are we working? Is it designed? Is it built for those we're trying to reach? Today's footprint is tomorrow's legacy. And so the second part of our application comes from Deuteronomy. We get started in verse 5, and it says, and so you must love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I'm giving to you today. Love the Lord your God with all your heart. Now, that's a very famous line, right? This is what Jesus says when they come up to him and they say, what's the greatest commandment ever? And Jesus says, well, it's love the Lord with everything you've got. This is that commandment. This is what he quotes. He quotes Deuteronomy. But what I'm going to focus on is the next verse. So this is the most important commandment in the Bible. This is the good stuff. And then it says in verse 7, repeat them, all these wonderful commands. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you're at home and when you're on the road, when you're going to bed and when you're getting up. Talk to your children about this stuff. We take the lessons that God teaches us and we pass it on to the next generation. Teach your children this stuff when you're at home, when you're on the road, when you're out at camp, when you're on vacation. There are no vacations from church because there's no vacation from God. Now, it doesn't matter if you're in this building, but it matters if you're giving God his time. Wherever you go in all your vacations, I hope you're giving God some time. Even if you're out at camp and you bust out a Bible and you talk to your kids about God, give God his time. Step 1, get ready to be uncomfortable. But step 2 in building a legacy is to teach the next generation. It's amazing how much we as parents, it's kind of one of my new favorite phrases, it's amazing how much we as parents pawn off the decision making. We pawn off parenting, guiding our children onto other people. We have parents who drop off their children for Sunday school. Like, they don't even get out of the car. They just stop and they send their kids in. Right? And what kind of message is that sending? Right? Okay, you get out, go into the church, you go into that God place. They'll teach all the God stuff so I don't have to. You know, go on into the public schools, go into the public schools health education so that they'll teach about sex so that I don't have to. Go on, watch your movies and your TV shows and your internet to learn about drugs and alcohol and how to treat your friends. Go on, learn all that stuff so I don't have to have an awkward conversation with my kids. I feel like the modern world of secular parents is just a giant group of people who are afraid to be parents. Have you seen this? People are just afraid to say anything. Deuteronomy teaches us how to teach the next generation. It's not even that hard. Talk to them. Talk to your kids. Talk to your children. Repeat the guidance of God again and again to your children. No more of this letting somebody else teach your children. We need to step up to our responsibilities as what it means to be a father, what it means to be a mother, a mentor, a teacher. And so I have an announcement. I'm actually very excited about this. Effective immediately, we are canceling our fall Sunday school program. We're canceling our fall Sunday school program. We're throwing out the old book, the teacher-student model. It has not worked for a very long time. We have had excellent teachers and hard-working volunteers, and they've been spinning their wheels for years as we watch the program just kind of shrink down. It has not been working. Because no matter how much we teach them here, if they're not getting it at home, it's not going to sink in. It's not working. Again, we are canceling our Sunday school program for the fall. Now that's not the only announcement. That's part 1. I'm happy to announce our second thing. We're going to try something new. So this fall, we're going to start a new program called Messy Church. It's a whole new way to look at teaching kids about God. There's no more classrooms, there's no more different grades. Messy Church is going to meet in the fellowship hall during the 10 o'clock hour, but the whole family is going to be invited. It's not just the kids. We're all done just teaching your kids. We want kids and parents and moms and dads and everyone getting together to work on crafts and projects, all while learning about God. True to its name, we are going to get messy this fall. Messy church is going to kind of take over that 10 o'clock hour. You don't dress up for messy church. The very first lesson that we have planned involves a lot of finger paint. You have to take your shoes off to get involved. You don't dress up for messy church because you're going to get messy. We're going to invite these parents. We're not going to teach kids anymore. We're going to teach parents how to teach their kids. We're going to give the power back to the family. We're going to teach these people how to do the things that they've been avoiding, how to talk to your kids about God. Now, this is the part that might make you uncomfortable. Right? That fellowship hall is going to be loud. It's going to be chaotic. It's going to be sticky. It's going to be messy. Some of you might not like that. But let me ask you, who is this church for? Who is this church for? Now here's where you come in. Because I know some of you might be thinking, look, my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids are all grown up. I don't need to do this anymore. I'm all done with the messy church. I don't have to raise kids anymore. I'm all done. So how does this affect me? Messy church, I think, is going to be one of the greatest tests of our hospitality. Messy church is going to push our comfort level. It's going to push us a little bit. We have single moms in this church who have kids, or maybe they're not single moms, but dad's not involved. He doesn't come to church. Right? We have single moms. So do we have men in this church who will step up and show them what a good role model is, show them what a man of God is supposed to look like? We're going to have some kids who are going to get dropped off and their parents won't come. Even though we're inviting them, they may not show. Do we have people in this congregation who will step up and fill that role, who will guide those children? Pseudo-parents, pseudo-grandparents, right? It takes a village to raise a child. You've heard this phrase, yes? It takes a village to raise a child. Are we ready to be that family? Are we ready to be the family of God? Since my son was born, Sarah and I have witnessed just this incredible outpouring of love and support and onesies. We've just witnessed you have all been so wonderful to my son. Will you be that wonderful to the stranger whose kids you don't recognize? Will you be that loving and that wonderful to the mom with the screaming kids who's struggling because they're running around like little crazy people because they're so excited to be in church? I hope you know that when I see a kid screaming his head off in church and just running around having a good time, that's like my favorite noise in the world. Because that means he's here and he's learning about God, and we can't throw that away anymore. We can't turn our nose up at the kids that are making a mess. We need to invest in the younger generation. Yeah, they're loud. We may not like their style. We don't like how they're dressed. We don't like that they're running around being dirty and loud. They might be disrupting your worship experience, but who is this church for? What is your legacy going to be? Is it going to be just memories? Or is it going to be a whole new generation who loves God? Today's footprint is tomorrow's legacy. God guides each and every one of us. That's what makes us a Christian. We love Jesus, and we follow his teachings. That's why we're here. Are you ready to take the next step? To pass on that love to the next generation? Are you ready to get a little uncomfortable, to step up and lead? What will your legacy be? So I'll leave you with this. May you remember the story of God in your life. Remember the things that God has done for you. And may you tell that story to your children. Repeat it over and over to your children and to their children and to their children. And may you write the history of tomorrow with what you do here today.